Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite champions, Vex, the Gloomist.
I'm only in this place because I hate it.
I'll be going over her lore and abilities as well as touching on some of her visual aspects in order to explain why I think she's such a well-made champion. Hopefully by the end of the video you will feel the same way, so let's get started. Vex, being the sad and melancholic yordle that she is, grew up to hate the upbeat and colorful world of Bandle City. Having isolated herself and spending most of her time alone with her shadow, it's no surprise that when the Black Mist arrived in Bandle City, she had no interest in warding it off and instead became intrigued, following it all the way back to the Shadow Isles where she would stay. Over time, and with the combination of the Black Mist and her magic nature, her shadow became sentient, allowing her to wield dark and gloomy magic as seen in her gameplay. Part of what makes her design so good is thanks to how well her lore ties into her abilities and voice lines.
Ugh, this place has way too many colors.
Due to her yordle nature, all of her abilities take on a kind of silly or cartoonish appearance that doesn't take the dark and gloomy aspect very seriously. It's this contrast that makes her so charming and likable.
I'm dancing, happy.
Although she may be small and adorable, her voice lines make it very clear that she wants nothing more than to see everyone just as depressed and miserable as she is.
Just give up. I did.
Moving on to her gameplay, Vex is a burst mage, played almost exclusively in the mid lane. Thanks to the simplicity of her abilities, she tends to be an all-around solid pick for most games, and thanks to her passive, she can actually perform well against high mobility assassins despite her squishy nature. Vex's passive, Doom and Gloom, has two parts. Doom will gradually fill a bar over time that when full will empower her next ability, causing it to fear anyone it hits. Gloom will mark any nearby champions that recently used a dash or a blink for a few seconds. Vex can then detonate the mark, either using basic attacks or abilities, dealing bonus damage and charging her Doom bar faster. What makes this passive so well designed is the fact that it can give her a slight advantage under specific circumstances. Obviously, it has little to no use on champions like Anivia, but even against someone like Yasuo, you still have to detonate the mark in order to reap the benefits. It's perfectly designed to encourage interaction with risks in order to get rewarded, while not being overpowered in every single matchup. The benefits it provides only brings her to the same level as her opponent. If you are against someone with high mobility, then you're given the tools to make the lane a little more even, but only if you can utilize them. When you're against someone with no mobility, then you gain none of these benefits, and thus the playing field is more or less even by default. Honestly, I can't express how perfectly this passive is designed without going to excruciating detail, but I think you guys get the point. Vex's Q, Mistal Bolt, is a very basic spell that starts off as a decent-sized wave that after traveling a short distance will narrow out and travel much faster, dealing damage to anything in its path. There's not much more to it, it's just a simple skill shot that serves as one of her primary damage tools. Vex's W, Personal Space, is almost exactly what it sounds like. When cast, she instantly emits a shockwave of damage around her while also gaining a shield for a short duration. On its own, this ability does just fine, but becomes really strong when paired with Doom and her ult, which we'll get to next. It works great for self-peel against assassins and fighters, since when empowered it fears anyone around her, but turns into a powerful engage tool when used with her ult, Shadow Surge. Shadow Surge is a long-range skill shot that does damage to the first champion hit and marks them for 4 seconds. Vex can then recast this ability to rapidly dash to the marked champion, doing damage on arrival. If the target dies within 6 seconds, the ability can be recast at no cost for the next 12 seconds. Since Vex's ult can't be empowered with Doom, it allows her to save it for her other abilities. Ulting into the enemy team with an empowered W will not only deal damage and fear anyone hit, but also provides her a decent shield to survive until her team comes to help. You could use her other empowered abilities after ulting, but her W is almost guaranteed to work best since it comes out instantly. Vex's E, Looming Darkness, is probably the most complicated of her spells, which is why we're talking about it last. Vex sends Shadow to a target location, dealing damage in an area and slowing while also applying gloom to any one hit. The size and speed of this ability changes depending on the distance. Using it close to Vex will cause it to cast much faster but have a much smaller radius. Using it further away from Vex will cause it to cast much slower but be much larger. This ability is unique in the sense that it doesn't do crazy good damage, but can help Vex clear waves while also recharging Doom faster since it applies gloom to champions and minions alike. When combined with Mistal Bolt, it works as a good pushing and poking tool. Because of her ult, Vex not only excels at roaming to other lanes, but also has a really strong teamfight presence. Shadow Surge's range increases with every point you put into it, meaning that at later levels, the enemy really has to be careful with their positioning, as she can enter a teamfight from almost halfway across the map, so long as she lands her ult. That and the amount of disruption and burst damage she can incur in a very short time makes her a force to be reckoned with. Getting a reset on her ult means she can close out teamfights really well by picking off any stragglers or bursting down priority targets. All in all, Vex's kit and playstyle complement her design really well. None of her abilities are overloaded with unnecessary passives or true damage and flow into one another very nicely. She's fairly simple and has a bit of room for skill expression without making you want to bang your head against a wall when you have to play against her. She's given the tools to deal with a specific class of champions without shutting them down entirely, unlike some anti-mages I know. I personally think Vex is a criminally underrated champion both in-game and in concept. She always manages to stay at a healthy win and play rate without needing to be balanced every 2 weeks. I, for one, find her incredibly fun to play, and it isn't a total headache when she's on the enemy team. That and her visual design is very charming and fits into the League universe quite nicely. Well guys, I think that just about covers it. I plan on doing more videos like this for champions I don't like as well, so if there's any champions you want to see in the next video, leave it in the comments below. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.